I want my father, David Michael Wolfson of the South Side of Chicago, to visit his father. I prayed this on a Friday night. I think it was like March 11th, 1977. I called home, March 10th or March 11th. I called home that Saturday morning. Forgot I even prayed the prayer. I said, Mom, can I talk to Dad for a second? She said, Bill, you won't believe this. A miracle happened. I've been nudging your father for years to go see his father over at the Drexel retirement home. This morning he got up and said, Gene, this will sound strange, but I think I'm supposed to go see my dad. And he went to the retirement home.
What did you take that as?
You know what? This is what's so bizarre. When the supernatural happens and we're in the middle of this script, we don't even realize it's supernatural. I thought this is like an ESP thing or a clairvoyant thing or something strange. So anyway, that wasn't good enough for me. So the next thing that I did was I said, you know what, God, if you're really real, I don't want to be the only Jew that accepts this Jesus guy. I mean, I was always brought up with this thing called the Shema. We used to say, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear you, Israel, the Lord thy God's one God. I mean, I couldn't accept this new math thing, you know, three gods, one, you know, this Trinity thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was just so religious, and I just couldn't accept that. So I said, if this is really the truth, I want to see other Jewish friends get saved. On March 12th, my roommate in college, Martin Sheldon, he comes to me. Bill, I just became a Christian. You don't want to hear what I said. I can't say this on television. I was ticked. I wasn't even looking for this prayer to be answered.
No wonder that 11-year-old girl said, get the junk out of him. But let me tell you something. This gets so amazing. We'll be right back.
We'll return with Sid Roth and It's Supernatural right after this.
Hello, I'm Sid Roth, your investigative reporter. I'm speaking to Bill Wolfson, a Jewish man that is resisting sign after sign from God that Jesus is his Messiah. And he's saying, I'm a tough nut to crack. God, save some of my friends, my Jewish roommates. And his Jewish roommate, you became a believer. What happened next?
Again, I never expected it to happen. All of a sudden, Warren Engelberg, another Jewish friend, gets saved. This is all within 3 days. Then you've got Richard Warren. We called him Dickie Warren, a drummer. He gets saved. Then Martin's mother, Adele, gets saved. Father, Fred, gets saved. Brother, George, gets saved. Then his brother, David, gets saved.
Was that enough? Was that enough Jewish people from your prayer?
On March 14th, 1977, at 8 p.m., I fell on my face and I cried out for the first time in my life, Jesus. Can you believe I said this? Jesus,
I know
come into my heart. Be my Lord and Savior. I mean, I realized I'm out of the will. I realized my parents are going to have a funeral for me. That's what Jews do. They sit shivy. That's like a whole week of mourning as a result of what I'm doing. I'm crying out to Jesus, and at that moment, he answers. He not only does that, all of a sudden I start speaking in a weird language, and it wasn't Hebrew. It wasn't Baruch Atah Adonai. It was just like this weird tongue thing, and I had no idea what it was. It freaked me out. Here I am speaking in a tongue, and then all of a sudden I'm saying some other words along with it that aren't all that Christian, you know, because I am scared. I don't know what's happening inside of me. And then I heard as clearly as we're talking right now, I had this voice from God, Yahweh, or whoever. And he said, you're dropping out of law school this week. It's over.
How did you feel?
Oh, I felt betrayed. I felt defrauded. This is my whole life. I wanted to be a lawyer since I was 10 years of age. And he said, I've called you to, listen to this. This might be too weird, but preach the gospel. And I'd never read one verse of the New Testament in my entire life. And my whole life changed that night.
It changed so much. Give me a picture of where you are just before that young girl laid hands on you and prayed for you in Moni, Illinois.
Oh, how much it's changed is, first of all, I didn't marry a Jewish woman. I married a Mennonite, and today I got 5 Jumanites, 5 Jumanite children. And how it's changed is, I went on and became the pastor of a church.
How large is it?
It's about 2,000 plus and growing rapidly. We're in a $13 million building program, seats about 3,000.
So when this young 11-year-old puts her hands on you and says,
Father, get this junk out of him now.
What happened?
Oh, I fell down. I wanted to rebuke her and say, who do you think you are? I know your father. I know this church. I have spoken in this church 50, 60, 70 times. I was ready to rebuke her. I literally was like lifted off the floor, thrown backwards, and I was just on the floor for the next few hours. And during this time, this never happened before. And Sid, people think I'm absolutely insane when I say it, but I heard the audible voice of God.
You mean previous to that point, you heard God in an impression, but this time it was audible?
Oh, yeah. I heard him in my heart. I heard him in my mind. I sometimes thought it was him. Sometimes it was me. Sometimes it was my wife, kvetching, as we say in Yiddish, complaining.
Sometimes it was the pizza.
The pepperoni pizza. But this was undeniably, unmistakably God. And he said, you're arrogant. You're prideful. You're self-centered. He says, if you don't let me get this junk out of your life, this pride, this arrogance, he says, you become like a CEO, the head of a corporation, not a church. He said, hey, bro, it's over for you.
Did he use those words?
Well, he used some of the more spiritual words, but I'm kind of bringing... Bottom line, he said, if you don't let me get this... What he said was, he said something out of the Bible in the book of Revelation. He said, I'm going to pull this thing called a candlestick out of you. I'm going, what in the world is this candlestick? And he said very simply, he said, all of the tools you need to minister the way you need to minister, you're going to lose it. It's over. It's gone. And he began to share with me, many people today don't go to churches because so many of us as preachers, we've become phonies. We've become so contrived. We've become so theatrical. And he said, if you don't let me get this stuff out of your life, it's over. You know what, Sid? I thought I was going to die. I thought that if I didn't change on that spot, I was addicted to drugs at this time in my life. To drugs. I was a drug addict. Now, let me explain to you. They were pharmaceutical. The doctor prescribed them. What had happened was I had an injury at a restaurant about 6 years ago. I was hit in the back by the brass handle on a door while I was on the telephone from a drunk that was coming out of the bathroom, and did nerve damage, my suprascapular, my rhomboids. The EMG test and everything showed severe nerve damage. I was in ongoing pain. I was taking 8 Percocet and 8 Soma a day. Now, those are very serious pharmaceutical medications. And I never even asked for a healing. But while I was on the floor, he said, you drug addict, I've been wanting to heal you all these years. He said, I had a miracle for you, a supernatural occurrence, and you missed it. I got up the next morning. I was with a friend of mine by the name of Carl. I just felt this impression, let's go lift weights. I hadn't lifted weights for the longest time. We lifted weights, no pain. I couldn't lift my arm higher than this. I had this crepitus, meaning this crackling in my suprascapular, absolutely gone, absolutely healed.
What about the drug addiction?
You know what?